On the crisp morning of February 6, 2016, the Oakville community awoke to a single impossible question. How could a seasoned law enforcement officer fall victim to violence inside his own home? Officer Michael Harris, respected by colleagues and beloved by neighbors, had built his career on steady reliability. Over 12 years with the Redwood City Police Department, he earned commendations in traffic enforcement, community outreach, and crisis negotiation. Parents trusted him to teach their children safety tips at school assemblies. Local business owners called him the calm in every storm. That morning, however, brought only silence. A neighbor's dog growled relentlessly at a closed front door. When a patrol partner forced entry, they found Michael's service weapon still holstered, his badge glinting on the bathroom floor, and 4 bullet wounds that spelled a life cut brutally short. The news raced through the department by mid-morning. Their comrade, their friend, was gone. At the precinct, officers gathered in tight groups, voices hushed as they exchanged disbelief. Citizens drove by the yellow crime scene tape, struggling to reconcile the man they waved hello to with the tragedy unfolding behind every taped window. Yet this was only the beginning. As detectives secured the scene, they discovered Michael's own voice lingering on a hidden recording device. Fragments of arguments, sharp words of warning, and a vow that nothing will keep me from my son. Those tapes would later become the most damning evidence of a conflict that no court could ignore. Meanwhile, a trail of false testimony began to unravel. Claims that Michael had been the aggressor, that his injuries were self-inflicted or the result of an accidental discharge. Over the next decade, the case would wind its way through 2 trials, expert testimonies, and legal arguments that tested the very limits of the justice system. It would reveal secrets of jealousy, obsession, and meticulous planning. It would force a community to confront its assumptions about victims and perpetrators. And ultimately, it would hinge on the slow, unrelenting pursuit of truth, one piece of evidence at a time. Stay with us as we retrace every step, from Michael's first day on the force to that fateful morning, from the hidden microphone that captured critical confessions to the jury room where 12 strangers wrestled with doubt and conviction. This is the story of Officer Michael Harris, of the battle for his legacy, and of justice that refused to be rushed. Welcome to True Crime Chronicle, where we serve you with true crime stories that keep you at the edge of your seat and wonder the kinds of evil that lurks within the heart of men. Please hit the subscribe button and let's ride into mystery together. From the moment Michael Harris and Sarah Thompson first crossed paths, their story moved at high speed. It was early 2010 when they met at a community fundraiser hosted by the Redwood City Police Department. Michael, then a fresh-faced officer eager to make a difference, noticed Sarah's warm smile as she volunteered at the registration table. She was working toward a degree in social work, determined to help families navigate difficult times. In the days that followed, casual greetings became coffee dates, and before long, they were inseparable. By July 2011, they had eloped in Las Vegas. Sarah wore a simple white sundress. Michael traded his uniform for a crisp suit. Back home, they settled into a modest 2-bedroom house on Elm Street, renovating the backyard into a safe play area for the children they planned. Friends praised them as a devoted couple. Michael coaching Little League on Saturdays, Sarah organizing holiday drives at the local shelter. Then in May 2014, their son Ethan arrived. Michael cradled him in the hospital nursery, whispering promises of protection and love. Sarah beamed with pride, until the first cracks appeared. Late that summer, neighbors overheard raised voices through the thin walls. In October, Sarah was recorded destroying furniture in a fit of rage, convinced Michael was keeping her from advancing her career. On one occasion, she tampered with the brake lines of his motorcycle, the very vehicle he used for patrols, leaving him with a flat tire and a chilling note. "Don't forget who brings you luck." Unwilling to make false reports and mindful of his badge, Michael chose a different course. He began placing a small recorder in key locations: the living room lamp, the back hallway, even under the nursery rocking chair. The tapes captured Sarah's outbursts, her voice rising as she accused him of trying to erase me and declaring, "You will never have Ethan without me in the picture." Their separation came in January 2015. Michael moved into a spare room at his brother Mark's house. taking Ethan with him. Sarah stormed out that night, leaving behind a handwritten letter demanding sole custody. In the following months, she filed motion after motion, painting Michael as unstable and unfit. Court hearings filled with legal jargon offered little relief. Each session closed with another date set 2 months later. Through all of it, Michael remained cautious. He agreed to mediation, hoping to protect his son. Sarah agreed, until the day she discovered he had begun dating again. A screenshot of a girlfriend's photograph, printed and affixed to a sticky note, turned up in Sarah's purse. In a custody hearing months later, that note became evidence of Sarah's growing fixation. Despite the turmoil, they tried one last effort at normalcy. In January 2016, just weeks before the tragedy, they co-hosted Ethan's second birthday. Invitations went out. Neighbors brought balloons. Michael baked a cake in the shape of a fire truck, Ethan's favorite. For an afternoon, laughter filled the house. Sarah even smiled as she helped her son blow out the candles. But the recordings Michael had stashed in his jacket pocket that day would later reveal Sarah's true feelings. After the guests left, hidden audio caught her muttering, "Soon he'll see things my way, or not at all." Those words, buried among sounds of squealing children, would become a critical thread in unraveling what happened next. Key locations set the stage for everything that followed. The Elm Street home, with its squeaky front gate, the narrow hallway where Sarah's voice echoed at 2 a.m., and the bathroom door Michael would later lock behind him. In Sarah's apartment across town, wallpapered with custody documents and photos of Ethan held close, detectives would find drafts of revenge-laden letters she never sent. By the end of 2015, both sides had amassed evidence. Michael's recordings, medical reports of Sarah's breakdowns, and text messages she sent admitting, "I can't let him have Ethan." Yet no judge ordered full custody for either parent. Ethan remained a child caught between two lives, a small boy unaware of the storm gathering around him. As 2016 dawned, the heated custody dispute showed no sign of resolution. Michael continued his patrols, greeting neighbors with a steady nod, concealing the fear that grew each time he approached his own front door. Sarah watched from a distance, her resolve hardened by every courtroom setback. In the weeks before February, she established an alibi that would later crumble under scrutiny: coffee cups with fingerprints wiped clean, surveillance cameras disabled with the precision of someone who understood law enforcement technology. It was into this atmosphere of bitter conflict and meticulous preparation that the events of February 6th would explode. The years of recordings, the battles over Ethan, the fleeting moments of family celebration, all converged in a single violent act that would eclipse every memory of birthdays past. And so, as we turn to the day that changed everything, remember how a simple community fundraiser led to a partnership-turned-courtroom spectacle. Because in every happy beginning, there may lie the seeds of a reckoning no one saw coming. On the morning of February 6, 2016, Sarah Thompson set her plan into motion before dawn. She arrived at Michael Harris's Oakville home just after 5 a.m., carrying a single duffel bag. Inside, she had disabled 6 of his 7 firearms, removing firing pins and scattering parts across the garage floor, leaving only his service pistol intact. She worked quickly, wiping down every surface with a microfiber cloth to remove fingerprints, then stashed the weapon's components in plastic evidence bags she brought along. By 6 a.m., she slipped into the closet of the hallway outside Michael's bathroom and waited. Moments later, Michael stepped in, unaware that his worst fear had taken refuge mere feet away. As he locked the door behind him, Sarah's hand emerged from the dark. At point-blank range, she fired 4 shots, 2 to the chest, 1 to the forehead, 1 to the neck. Each report echoed through the empty house. When Michael collapsed, Sarah retrieved his watch, wallet, badge, and the pistol, then staged a burglary to mislead investigators. Drawers were yanked open, window glass broken, and a shattered photo frame left at the scene. Detectives arrived within the hour. The first officer on scene noted an absence of blood spatter on the bathroom walls, no sign of a struggle, but found carpeting soaked in small rivulets of blood. The front door showed no forced entry. A lone shell casing lay on the tile floor, its pristine condition suggesting careful retrieval. At the precinct, a senior investigator, Lieutenant Craig Mendez, ordered a complete canvass of the neighborhood and escorted a uniformed officer to collect the duffel bag Sarah had discarded alongside Interstate 51, county over. Forensic technicians began their methodical work. They dusted for prints on the broken glass tumbler Sarah used to stage the robbery, her palm smudge revealed by fingerprint powder. Gunshot residue, GSR swabs taken from the towel Sarah used to muffle the weapons report later tested positive for barium and antimony, chemicals found only in primer compounds. Ballistics analysis matched the service pistol's rifling to the 4 bullets recovered from Michael's body. Each bullet bore 6 grooves with a right-hand twist, identical to the barrel designation of his assigned weapon. Meanwhile, detectives obtained cell tower records placing a white sedan, registered to Sarah, within 2 blocks of Michael's home at 5:45 a.m. Surveillance cameras at a nearby gas station captured her license plate blur, and timestamps corroborated her later trip to the I-5 drop site. Investigators also secured GPS logs from Michael's patrol car, showing no movement after his last tour of duty the night before. His cruiser remained parked in the driveway, lights off, engine cold. As the evidence mounted, teams sifted through Michael's personal recordings. Hidden in the hallway light fixture was a micro recorder that captured Sarah's hushed whispers in the hours leading up to the killing. In one clip, she rehearsed her alibi. "Tell them I came over, found the door open, panicked, and called the police." In another, she rehearsed the staged robbery narrative, listing items she would say were missing. Those tapes became critical when she repeated the identical script in her first police interview. Detective Louise Grant spearheaded the canvass of potential witnesses. A neighbor reported hearing a muffled sob around 6 a.m., though fear kept her from looking. A postal carrier mentioned noticing the front gate ajar, something she'd never seen before. And at Sarah's apartment, friends described her as on edge in the days leading up. Fresh bruises on her forearm, unexplained tears at odd hours. All of these accounts were cataloged and cross-referenced with timelines from phone pings and Michael's own patrol logs. By midday, the state crime lab had turned around preliminary results. Lieutenant Mendez convened a briefing. GSR on towels matched the victim's weapon. Fingerprints on broken glass matched Sarah's. Surveillance and phone data placed her at all critical locations, and Michael's recordings captured her intentions. With that, the decision was made to charge Sarah with first-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and child endangerment for the risk posed to Ethan that morning. Yet even with these breakthroughs, unanswered questions lingered. How did Sarah acquire the technical skill to disable firearms so quickly? What drove her to carry out the killing at the moment Michael was most vulnerable? And why did she choose to stage a robbery rather than disappear? Those questions would propel the case into the courtroom, where hidden recordings and meticulously gathered forensic proof would collide with competing narratives. As Oakville braced for trial, the crime scene yielded its final piece of evidence, a single crumpled sticky note found under the bathroom sink. On it was scrawled the name of Michael's new girlfriend, an echo of jealousy that tied every moment together, from birthday smiles to blood on the tile. The puzzle was complete, but the battle for truth was only just beginning. When prosecutors formally charged Sarah Thompson in March 2016, the courtroom became the focal point of a community demanding answers. Opening statements laid out the case with methodical precision: a service pistol matching the fatal bullets, gunshot residue on towels, fingerprints on broken glass, cell tower pings tracking Sarah's movements, and Michael Harris's own voice captured on hidden recordings. The prosecution called its first witness, Detective Louise Grant, to recount the crime scene findings. Her testimony traced every step, from Sarah's arrival before dawn to the moment the duffel bag appeared on Interstate 5. In cross-examination, defense counsel probed the chain of custody and the handling of GSR swabs, suggesting contamination could have occurred during evidence transfer. Next came the forensic firearms expert, who demonstrated how the striations on the recovered bullets matched Michael's service weapon. The jurors leaned in as the expert placed a bullet casing under a comparison microscope, projecting side-by-side images of barrel grooves. When asked if any other weapon could have produced identical markings, he replied, "No, only that barrel." On the third day, the hidden audio recordings took center stage. Jurors listened as Sarah's voice rehearsed her staged robbery narrative, followed by her whispered vow that Michael would never see Ethan again. A court technician meticulously synchronized timestamps with Michael's patrol logs. At the defense table, Sarah sat impassive, her eyes fixed on the floor. But the defense was not without its own dramatic twists. In a surprise move, Sarah's attorneys introduced allegations that Michael had engaged in inappropriate behavior at home, claims backed only by unverified text messages and a report of an anonymous tip. They painted him as volatile, implying that Sarah's actions were a desperate response to intimidation. When the prosecution objected to the admission of these unsubstantiated accusations, the judge allowed the jury to hear them, but instructed that credibility rested on corroborating evidence, which the defense ultimately could not provide. Perhaps the most jarring moment came when defense counsel raised an unfounded assertion that Michael's computer contained illicit files. The claim sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Under pressure, the defense investigator conceded there had been no forensic finding of such material. The courtroom fell silent as jurors absorbed the retraction. Over the next week, character witnesses testified on Sarah's behalf, friends describing her as caring, devoted to Ethan, and overwhelmed by the custody fight. They spoke of her tears and late-night phone calls begging Michael to be a father. The prosecution countered with family members who recounted Sarah's earlier threats, documented in Michael's recordings. Closing arguments stretched late into the afternoon of the fourth week. The prosecutor urged jurors to consider the totality of evidence. Every piece aligns to one conclusion. This was planned, executed, and covered up. The defense appealed to reasonable doubt, highlighting conflicting witness accounts and the weight of emotion in custody disputes. After just 4 days of deliberation, the jury returned without a verdict, a hung jury. 11 jurors had voted to convict on first-degree murder, 1 held out. As the judge declared a mistrial, Sarah's face revealed relief and disappointment. Michael's family wept openly, torn between sorrow and frustration. In the hush that followed, the community confronted a question they had hoped never to ask. If 10 months of testimony, forensic science, and intimate recordings could not secure a verdict, what would it take to find the truth? The answer would come in the years ahead, when prosecutors prepared to bring the case back before a new jury, and a fresh wave of evidence. Nearly 6 years after the jury in 2020 failed to reach a verdict, the case against Sarah Thompson returned to court in January 2026. Prosecutors had spent the intervening years building an even stronger presentation, gathering new expert testimony, revisiting overlooked recordings, and preparing to answer every question that had lingered after the mistrial. When the second trial opened, the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with determination. The lead prosecutor reminded the jury that Michael Harris had dedicated his life to protecting others, that his final act was simply returning home to care for his son. He then introduced a forensic psychiatrist who had evaluated Sarah Thompson over several months. In measured tones, she explained how Thompson's pattern of deception and her history of impulsive aggression met the clinical criteria for antisocial personality disorder. Every assessment, interview transcripts, psychological inventories, childhood records painted a portrait of someone capable of meticulous planning without remorse. Next, the prosecution replayed previously unseen audio from Michael's hidden recorder. One clip captured Sarah practicing the timeline of her arrival at Michael's house, rehearsing the claim that she found the door ajar and called 911. In another, she described her intention to teach him a lesson once she learned he was dating again. Jurors heard her voice shift from steady confidence to tense whispers as she mapped out each step. This previously undisclosed recording filled a critical gap in the timeline, placing her at the scene at the precise moment officers believed she disabled his firearms. The digital forensics expert then took the stand. Using Michael's patrol car computer and Sarah's phone records, he demonstrated a synchronized map of their movements. GPS pings traced Sarah's route from her home to Michael's at 5:20 a.m. Cell tower handoffs documented her flight down Interstate 5 after the shooting. For jurors accustomed to watching crime dramas, seeing data points coalesce into a clear path underscored the level of premeditation involved. Sarah's defense team attempted to undercut these developments by revisiting the claim of self-defense, arguing that Michael's recordings did not conclusively prove a threat at the moment of the shooting. They introduced a new witness, a co-worker who testified that Michael could be abrupt and intimidating under stress. But when cross-examined, The witness admitted never having observed violence towards Sarah or Ethan. The attempt to cast doubt on Michael's character fell flat against the weight of scientific evidence. Perhaps the most dramatic moment of the retrial came when the prosecution unveiled a new ballistics reconstruction. Using 3D modeling software, a crime scene analyst showed exactly how Sarah disabled each of Michael's firearms, then placed the service pistol under a ratcheting towel to muffle its report. The animation traced the bullet trajectories, confirming that all 4 shots were fired from inside the bathroom, through the closed door, and at close range. Jurors leaned forward as the analyst explained that the lack of defensive wounds indicated Michael never saw the attack coming. In the final phase, family members of both sides delivered impact statements. Michael's twin brother, Mark Harris, spoke of the child who would never hear his father's footsteps in the hallway. He described playing catch with his nephew Ethan, now 12, who asked endless questions about the man who vanished that morning. Ethan's eyes, Mark said, still search the shadows for a presence that will never return. Sarah's own mother testified on her daughter's behalf, tearfully pleading for mercy and blaming the system for failing to intervene before tragedy struck. But when confronted with the recordings of Sarah's whispered threats, voiced in her own words, she could offer no explanation other than a wish that her daughter had sought help earlier. After 4 weeks of testimony and 2 days of closing arguments, the jury withdrew to deliberate. The courtroom emptied into a tense hush. When the verdict was read, every eye turned to Sarah Thompson. Guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of evidence tampering, guilty of child endangerment. The only charge the jury rejected was lying in wait, meaning the prosecution could not secure the special sentencing enhancement that might have exposed Sarah to the death penalty. On June 12, 2026, just 2 days shy of the 10th anniversary of Michael's unexpected death, the judge imposed a sentence of 50 years to life in prison. Under California law, AB 3234, Sarah Thompson will be eligible to apply for parole at age 50, yet few believe she will ever gain release. As the gavel fell, the weight of a decade's worth of investigation and loss settled on everyone present. This verdict did more than close a case file. It gave Michael's family a measure of finality and set a precedent for how evidence, once dismissed or overlooked, can ultimately prevail. It reminded the community that persistence, coupled with scientific rigor, can overcome even the most tangled legal battles. And it offered a form of justice that, while imperfect, reflected the slow but certain arc of accountability. 10 years passed between the day Michael Harris took his final breath and the moment a jury declared his killer guilty. In that time, a child grew up without a father's bedtime stories. A community wrestled with uncomfortable truths about jealousy, gender assumptions, and the hidden dangers behind domestic disputes. And the law itself was tested, first by a jury unable to reach a verdict, then by one that refused to look away. Today, Ethan Harris lives with his uncle and aunt. His questions, why did this happen? When will mom come home? Echo in the halls of a house rebuilt without his father's laughter. Sarah Thompson serves her sentence, her every appeal a reminder of how long justice can take. Yet Michael's legacy endures in the reforms spurred by this case. Lily's law for infant safety, updated evidence handling protocols, and a renewed focus on domestic abuse resources for all victims, regardless of gender. His badge now rests in a place of honor at the Redwood City Police Department, a symbol of service cut short and a promise that officers are never beyond protection. If there is one lesson from this decade-long journey, it is that no detail is too small, no recording too insignificant. Truth can lie hidden in a whisper, a fiber on a garment, a timestamp in a log file. It takes perseverance to follow every thread and courage to confront what it reveals. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you believe in pursuing answers, share this story with others. Subscribe for more in-depth investigations and reach out if you or someone you know needs help. Because every voice deserves to be heard, and no story should end without justice. In the coming weeks, we will be uncovering more devastating true crime family homicides, so don't be left out. But until then, stay away from crime.